Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast with a surprisingly low-key ending, because this week we watched The Vanquishers.
Written by Chris Chibnall.
Directed by Azure Salim.
And aired on December 5th, 2021.
Well, here we are at the end. I know Mr. Salim is on Twitter. I know he's been tweeting about the conclusion to this season. Really hope now that he doesn't stumble upon our podcast, realize I've been mispronouncing his name for like three times now, probably more. We don't even know actually if I've been mispronouncing his name. I know when we watched this, I went, maybe I should like look up how to pronounce his name, but evidently in true decorative vegetable fashion, I didn't do that.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think you'd find... You know what? Here we go.
We're doing it live.
Yeah, speak of true decorative vegetable fashion. Howtopronounce.com says how to pronounce Azure. Well, they have a convenient audio thing here, so let's just see what that says.
Azure.
Well, kind of seems like that's possibly right, but maybe not.
All right, I found a clip of him saying it, and I've been saying it wrong the entire time.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to correct myself live on air. First off, I apologize for saying your name wrong. It's Azher Salim. Azher. There we go. Azher. It's actually surprisingly difficult to say that ZH and make them distinct consonant noises.
Oh yeah, it's like I guess it's like an Arabic name. I'm just seeing here how to pronounce Azhar in Arabic. And actually, if I had seen it written, because I can read Arabic very badly, because I know I don't speak the language, but because I know all the letters, I can read it like really poorly. And yeah, if I had seen that weeks ago, I would have known.
Well, thanks. Thanks. Well, again, I apologize for pronouncing your name wrong, Mr. Salim. But again, you've joined the pantheon of greats, like Joffrey Beavers and John Pertwee, who've had their names mispronounced here on Trust Your Doctor. Yeah, so The Vanquishers. As usual, we watched this on Monday after the episode aired, but a little earlier than normal. You know, the previous ones we watched in the evening. We actually watched this one at 7 in the morning, Monday, December 6th. We're recording this Wednesday, December 8th. Again, just a couple days after watching it, a couple days after it's gone out. And, I have some thoughts. I've kind of been letting it gestate in my mind
letting it marinate
for 2 days. Actually, this is actually true. Monday night, I was lying in bed. Couldn't fall asleep, and I was thinking about this. I was thinking about The Vanquishers. Mainly because I was like, what the heck was the Grand Serpent's motivation for everything?
Yeah, we just to preempt everything here, we joked about earlier on because we had identified a sort of pattern within this season, which was that like every other episode was slightly more episodic. You had War of the Sontarans focusing on the Sontarans, you had Village of the Angels focusing on the Angels, and obviously they tied into the larger thing, but it's like episodes 2 and 4 had more to do with telling their own self-contained story, I think, and episodes 1 and 3 had more to do with building this sort of, and 5 had more to do with building this sort of overarching thing that was happening for the entire season, or over the course of the entire season. And we're like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if episode 6 stuck with that and just kind of told its own story? And lo and behold.
Yeah, this is a surprisingly low-key conclusion to the season, but in a way, perhaps we shouldn't have been surprised. the previous two seasons, if I remember correctly, also ended on very well. Okay, so series
No,
12
not at all.
didn't. Series 12 ended on the timeless child reveal, but series 11 ended on what should have perhaps been, or from its synopsis seemed like it was going to be, a very big story, the Battle of Ranskarev Kolos. But I remember when I watched it, I was surprised at at how kind of low-key that episode felt.
Yes, and I think that holds true if you consider Resolution.
Yeah, even
as well.
Resolution, the first Chibnall era special felt very understated in many ways.
Yeah, and I think you can probably say the same of oh god, what was the New Year special of this year?
Revolution of the Daleks.
Yes.
Yeah. And possibly maybe even the next special, Eve of the Daleks, will be just as understated. But I guess we'll find out in, less than a month, 3 weeks basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's anything I want to preempt all this this conversation we're about to have with, but I don't think there is.
No, probably not. I mean, I guess we can just say that, I think the reason that personally I thought this was a little, maybe underwhelming isn't the right word, because I did like it at the end of the day, but it's the reason it maybe felt a little understated is that we still have there's still it feels like a lot of the balls are still up in the air. These balls that were thrown up or tossed up, I guess I should say. Thrown up is something else. A month and a half ago, it's Azure and Swarm are dealt with, but in a very interesting and kind of off the cuff way. The Grand Serpent is still just a massive question mark, on the sweater that is Doctor Who.
On the 7th Doctor's sweater that is Chibnall's whole era.
Yeah.
Can't believe I just compared Chibnall's run of Doctor Who to the tapestry of the tapestratic masterpiece that is the 7th Doctor's sweater. I'm pretty sure I just made that word up, but you know what? I'm going to leave it.
That's fine. Unlike a lot of other languages, English gives you the tools to make up new words whenever the hell you want, so might as well use them.
Yeah, well, actually, before we start, I do want to say, going into this episode, we've been talking a lot about how it feels like people have just been kind of solidly middle of the road on, Flux. People don't love it, but they don't hate it. But I saw a vitriolic reaction to this episode on Twitter after watching it. People hated this episode.
Yeah, that's what I got from the 2 seconds I spent looking at any sort of reaction material or opinions. Yeah, it was pretty. It's not very well liked.
People seem to have people just hated this episode, and maybe that's because they had some expectations going into it that weren't met. Maybe they expected certain things to come of this, but I don't really know. I do think that there is an element of, and we talk about this on an as yet unreleased. Look at me quoting the episodes. The as yet unreleased upcoming season of Triple Play, where we talk about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, that some people are perhaps engaging in what might be called bad faith criticism by saying the episode is bad just because it didn't answer the questions in the way they expected it, or didn't meet the expectations they had for it.
I mean, I think we've talked about this on Doctor Who as well, where it's so many people, and I, on some level, I kind of hate to make the episode about or I hate to make our episode about like sort of the larger reaction and not the episode itself, but whatever. I mean, we're already here. Like a lot
Well,
of
that's
people.
why I wanted to mention it at the beginning so we could get it out of the way and then go into our thoughts.
Yeah.
Like I felt like it would be wrong not to mention it, but I also don't want to make the whole episode about it, so I figured we'd get it out of the way at the beginning.
Yeah, that is a good plan of action. But it's like, I think, yeah, we have talked about it on this podcast as well, where it's like it feels like so many people watch Doctor Who or probably other shows as well, and just go like, well, this wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, so it's bad.
Yeah, and like you said, we don't need to dwell on it. In fact, I don't want to dwell on it. I'd rather just get into talking about the episode. Just wanted to kind of put it out there as something that's out there. Although I will say that Paul Cornell, a person who's written for Doctor Who before, really liked this episode and made a tweet that I found very insightful that I'm actually going to reference at the end because it kind of, I think it holds some interesting ideas, but I'm going to hold that for the end to when we've actually explained the plot.
Huh? Well, okay then.
I'm just foreshadowing, I want people to listen to the whole episode. So, just a little Chekhov's gun there. Just a little Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, knowing us, it's like, this is never going to be fired, never going to be taken off the wall. No, it will be, but it's like, we do have a history of setting things up and not following through, or just like completely forgetting when we kind of preempt
Much
something.
like Doctor Who.
Yeah. True, sadly. Well, anyway, the episode starts with all hell breaking loose.
Well, the episode starts with something really cool that I haven't seen done on Doctor Who, and in fact haven't seen done on any television show before at all to this point. And so because of that, I want to mention it, because maybe it's playing into some of the themes of this episode. We get, obviously, a previously on Doctor Who segment, and the way they do this is the final scene of the previously on just seamlessly continues into the new episode, and the little subtitle at the bottom changes from saying previously on to the word now, and then fades out. Like I've never seen a show integrate the previously on kind of recap in such a way that it just immediately leads into the episode. I mean, think about like Firefly, which we've been watching over on Inevitable. When you watch them on Hulu, you get basically the original airing version, so you get all the previously on segments, and when those finish, it usually fades out and then fades into the episode, and there's no like, and even on shows where they go directly into the episode off the previously on, it never like continues the exact same scene, or just seamlessly transitions in. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad you actually mentioned it while we were watching, because I wouldn't have even noticed it otherwise. I didn't even see the little now thing. I guess, true blue, red-blooded American that I am didn't read, so... words were put in front of me and I didn't read them. So.
Truly what you want to hear from the English major on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the Doctor is still on this weird sort of spaceship where she was with Tecteun and Swarm and Azure. Swarm and Azure are now... pretty much immediately they pick up on the fob watch and pick it up, and Azure's like, do you want to know what's inside? Your entire history. And then Swarm says something like, we have all those memories too, Doctor. Do you want them? Do you want them? And basically, right as Swarm goes to touch her, she does some. I don't remember exactly what she does. She does something.
She does. She's not doing this intentionally, right? Because throughout the episode, the Doctor is sort of split in three. But that wasn't her own doing.
Oh yeah, she does. Well, it's not her doing intentionally. Basically, she. Geez, we didn't even explain this. Actually, we didn't explain this when in Survivors of the Flux. When the Doctor lands on the ship, she has this plate attached to her head, which Tecteun, Osok at the time, explains that it's a conversion plate that allows her to exist outside of her universe. And so the instant Swarm goes to touch her, she takes the conversion plate off in an attempt to, I don't know, escape. Because without the conversion plate, she wouldn't be able to be there anymore. And that combination somehow splits her in three. She actually says later that combination must have split her, but she doesn't know how it works because it defies all known laws of physics.
Yeah, and plus they've been setting up this thing where Swarm and Azure are a spatial event or a temporal event, whatever that means. So maybe that has something to do with it. We still don't know really anything about that, other than that they were like the counterpoint to the Flux, which was a spatial an event. Or not an actually. Well, I was going to say anomaly, but it wasn't an anomaly. Now we know.
Yeah, this is also something I was thinking of. Lying in bed, can't go to sleep. that it kind of makes sense. Swarm and Azure seem, we learn because we saw the siege of Atropos, that they existed before the Mori were in place. And if you'll remember, also the Mori were set up as what basically creates linear time, that before the Mori existed, time kind of all happened at once. Everything was, there was no requirement for effect to proceed after cause. And so Swarm and Azure are kind of these beings that erase or affect time in that way. And it makes sense that Tecteun would want to release beings that want to destroy time, because if she just destroyed the universe with the Flux, then that's just a singular point in time that can be undone or rewound, or you can go back to the universe before the Flux happened. But by having Swarm and Azure, these time-destroying, time-feeding beings, because they also release all those time particles when they destroy the Mori, destroy the universe, they're also basically turning the Flux into destroying the entire universe everywhere at once.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it also makes sense that she imprisoned them, right? Because she wouldn't want them out and about before this.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of my thinking on that whole front. See, I also kind of suspect, this will probably never be explained by Chibnall, but based on the way Swarm and Azure act at the end, that they are either of the same race as the being time, or are of a race that has a close connection with the being time.
Yeah, it's never explained. I think all we get is that they were trying to summon it and that they worship it.
Yeah, the fact that they worship it to me made it seem like, well, maybe they have some sort of close ties with this. Chris Chibnall has now turned time from a concept to a planet,
to a god,
to a being. Yeah,
it's okay. We got a line to ravel. Oh my god, we got a line to rival. There's no planet called time. In I'm a man who knows what it means to live in exile. I think that wasn't the exact line, but it was something along that line.
Yeah, it was close to that. Which, we never said this on the podcast, but you lamented not being able to find the line "There's no planet called time" in the Halloween apocalypse, and I noted in the show notes that was probably because that line actually occurred in War of the Sontarans, not in the Halloween apocalypse.
Yeah, that was a shock to me. I could have sworn it was in episode 1. It was actually, you want to know who I am? I'm the man who understands the pain of exile.
Vinda said
implying
that.
He's the only one. I'm the man who understands.
The Doctor understands exile too, throwback to John Pertwee. So anyway, like we said, the Doctor gets split into three copies of herself.
Right, and last week this was interesting. Like we said, this episode was confusing. Speaking of Survivors of the Flux, but there's really three sort of things going on. There's three concurrent, threads running through this episode, and lo and behold, the Doctor is now involved in all three of those. Look at us predicting things in a roundabout way. It's not really a prediction, but I'm going to call it a prediction.
Yeah, you're basically retconning our statement into a prediction.
Yeah, just let that one under our belts. So the Doctor winds up. She obviously part of her consciousness stays with Azure and Swarm. Part of it winds up with Yaz and Dan and Williamson and Kate, and then part of it winds up with
Carvanista and Bell.
Yes, yeah, Carvanista and Bell.
You have to wonder why that part of her, why that copy of her ended up there. I guess because of Carvanista, I don't know.
Yeah, it was because of Carvanista. I think it was probably because she finally remembered who Carvanista was, and then you find out in that like sort of it sort of goes by very quickly, but it's almost a very harrowing scene where it's like you realize like the pain that Carvanista lives in, which is like quintupled or more, you know, with his entire race getting wiped out.
Yeah, Chris Chibnall just secretly setting up like exactly the situation the Doctor was in at the start of the reboot with Carvanista. Last of his race, got a couple companions bumming around, you know.
Yeah.
Just setting up that spin-off if Russell T wants to pick it up at any point.
I know, just Big Finish seeing dollar signs everywhere.
So the Doctor with Carvanista and Bell, helps them escape the Sontarans that have boarded the ship.
And I think we find out either through, I think it's through Carvanista, that the Sontarans are interested in a peace offer. That's elaborated more later in the episode, but I think we find out here.
Well, we actually see like their...
Oh yeah, we see their broadcast.
Yeah, we see their broadcast. Because it's kind of funny because they're like, we extend the hand of hope to everyone, except you Rootons, you can all die in hell.
You can all... Okay, whatever. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. I mean, this is obviously... You know, as a viewer, you immediately go, okay, this is a ruse. It's a trap of some sort.
Yeah, but you don't really see the effects of that until later.
Yeah, you don't really realize how egregiously the Sontarans have bit off more than they can chew until later. Like, there was no way... Like, once you actually know what the plan is, you're like, okay, so there's basically no chance that this was ever going to go right.
Yeah, well, it was a nice thought for them. It was a good attempt.
I think...
Go ahead.
Is this before the Doctor gets split into three? She winds up at that house that people thought was going to be a Long Barrow reference.
That's after she gets split into three because one of her copies goes into the Watch with Swarm and Azure.
Oh yeah,
the one that's with Swarm and Azure goes into the Watch with them.
Yeah,
but that's after the Doctor crashes the Luparian ship into the Sontaran ship. Now, these Sontarans are posted out at the Dark Energy camera in Chile, and I think this is the closest Doctor Who has ever come to intersecting with something in my own life, because I have worked with people who worked on the Dark Energy cam and actually have used data from the Dark Energy camera. So
it's
just
pretty interesting. Like 2 steps removed.
Yeah, I'm surprisingly close to that. To that, it's a collaboration, so I guess I'm surprisingly close to that event that shows up in Doctor Who. Neat, I guess.
Dylan doesn't talk about this, mostly because there's usually not really an opportunity to do so. But it's like, and he's not going to say it now because he's too humble or something like that. But like he's pretty involved with like some physics, like top level things. Seemingly, that's what I get.
Yeah, I'm involved in a collaboration called DESI, which is the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument. So kind of like DCAM, the Dark Energy camera, but we use a spectrograph instead. And I wouldn't say I'm high up in the collaboration, but code I've written gets run every night, so I guess that's pretty cool. Anybody who's new to the podcast might not know this, but I have a bachelor's in physics. I actually have a master's in physics now, and I'm working towards my PhD.
Right now you're the master. Pretty soon you'll be the doctor.
Great. Great. Yeah, some people seem to, some people forget that the master was named the master because the doctor is the doctor and the master is the master.
Is that really why?
I'm sure. I have a very vivid memory of us mentioning that, like the first time Roger Delgado's master showed up in the Pertwee era.
Wow, I'd completely forgotten about that.
Just proving my point, I guess.
What, that people forget?
That people forget that. Yeah, so after the Doctor crashes the ship into the Sontarans because she wants to get them to the ground because she has a plan to infiltrate the Sontaran ship, the version of her with Swarm and Azure gets taken into the Pocket Watch, and Swarm is like, look at this house. It contains everything about your life. What if I just destroyed it right now? And the Doctor's like, eh.
I mean, it's a pretty cool, like, effect done through CG, obviously, presumably.
They actually built this house.
I know, they destroyed
this
it.
Illogical house.
Yeah. Well, they even say, like, a house that, like, could never exist in real life or something.
The line they say also rivals there's no planet called time because it's an illogical house, a construction that makes no sense, which is like the second half of that sentence says the same thing as the first half, but in more words.
I know, it's like something out of Macbeth. Like, that's a common, like, this might be in other Shakespeare plays too, but I think it's unique to Macbeth, where it's like there's a ton of lines in that play that are exactly like that, where it's a single line dissected, whatever, and each half of it is the same thing. But whatever, we don't have to dwell on that.
Busting out your literary degree there.
I know you mentioned your physics stuff, so like I have to, I don't know, rival that in some way. I don't even use, unlike Dylan, I don't even use my degree like on a daily, weekly, or even monthly basis. So anyway, people thought this house was going to be related to the book Lung Barrow, and now a whole 2 days later, these same people are, I guess, disappointed because it's not related to Lung Barrow.
Yeah, what was that thing you told me? Millions of fans tearing up their copies of Lung Barrow.
I know it was. I didn't say that like directly. It was an account I follow on Twitter. Let me find the actual exact tweet here if Twitter would stop being incredibly slow. The sound of 1,000 fans tearing up their copies of Lung Barrow. Tweeted by toohot4_TV. Well, I think we then cut to the Yaz Dan Williamson thing.
Yeah, we cut to the tunnels.
We hear a bit about Williamson's sort of not underground reputation for being this underground guy. He was known as the Mad Mole.
The doctor says that Williamson's always been on her list. Like, she's always wanted to meet him, so convenient for her, I guess.
Yeah, it's more like a book, she says. It's like... her
list.
It's an IMDb list, right? Where it's like...
Oh,
it's
no.
like, you get those IMDb lists that are like... hot. They're always
people born in September, and there's like 1,000 people.
No, and it's even like, I don't even know what to call it. It's even like wilder than that, where it's like something like hottest actresses, and then it's just like 8,000 people. It's like, yeah, all right. And they
just couldn't pick. They just couldn't pick, man.
And it's always something like. It's always something related. It always like borders on / is something sexual related to actresses. Like that's what it always is.
It's the IMDb user forums. What did you expect, Keon?
Anyway, we get a brief overview of the Sontaran occupation. We see their ships, sort of jutting prominently out of cities the world over.
Yeah, the Doctor learns from Kate that the Sontarans are raiding corner shops, and the Doctor's like, that makes sense. They love chocolate. Well, she doesn't say that second part, but we find that part out very shortly.
Yeah, they sort of stake out a corner store, and one of the Sontaran commanders, I believe he's a new character that we hadn't seen before. He comes in and he's barking orders at his subordinates and stuff like that. And once he's alone, he just starts stuffing his face with chocolate.
Yeah, so the Doctor's got a plan, and that plan involves inserting some double agents into the Sontaran psychic command. So she bribes this Sontaran. she bribes the Sontaran to let two of them in, with the promise that they'll give him the recipe to make chocolate.
Oh, is that what it was? I thought they were just going to give him just more chocolate.
Well, they were going to do that. But in addition to that, they were going to give him the recipe so he could make his own.
Teach a man to fish.
Chocolate.
Teach Sontaran to make chocolate.
Then we cut to the Doctor that's with Carvanista and Bell. The Doctor and Carvanista have gotten captured, and Bell has not, which is part of the plan. The Doctor basically was like, oh yeah, it's just me and Carvanista on this ship.
Right, well, they sort of have a little heart-to-heart, don't they? We finally find out a little bit more about Carvanista.
Yeah, because, we saw Carvanista on the Temple of Atropos, and the Doctor's like, it was you, right? On the Temple of Atropos? And he's like, I can't talk about it. And she's like, please, I need to know. And he's like, I literally can't talk about it. There's a synaptic chip in my brain that'll explode if I talk about it.
Yeah, so he's basically been hardwired to blow up if he mentions anything regarding his past. He's kind of like Gan from Blake 7, as sort of a limiter. Except the limiter presumably works in this case. And I almost, looking back, I almost wished this scene was dwelt on a little bit more. It's given sort of equal weight with everything else, but I feel the emotional, side to this, and the how it also ties into Carvanista pretty soon being the last of his race, is a little more impactful than anything else in the episode, really. So I almost wish it was given, a little more room to breathe. But it's fine, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. They move past it pretty quickly because they have a lot of plot threads to close, a lot of people to see, places to go.
Mm-hmm.
And the Doctor immediately gets taken away for interrogation by the Grand Serpent. So
yeah, the Grand Serpent shows up and is like, oh my god, I completely forgot that the Grand Serpent was even part of this. And we still, like we said before, he's still just a massive question mark. At least as far as I see it.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's just a big unknown.
Yeah, sort of a wild card in all of this. Anyway, I think the Doctor then gets taken to, or she's not taken to because, maybe we didn't make this clear, but and presumably anyone listening to this already knows, but it's she's living through all these things at once. Obviously, we're not seeing them at once because that would make for probably the most confusing and disorienting episode of Doctor Who ever made.
Three-way split screen.
I know. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is you see all these things playing out in real time simultaneously. Imagine that. Anyway, we go into a scene with Azure and Swarm, and we find out, again, similar to Carvanista, just a little bit, just a smidge more about Azure and Swarm. And their plan, and now I didn't exactly understand this, similar to most of the rest of this episode, but it's their plan had something to do with trapping the entire universe in a loop of destruction and recreation. So that they could.
They basically want to destroy the universe of the Flux and then rewind time and do it again and again and again.
Yeah, this isn't their entire plan, but this is sort of the I don't know, the revenge part of their plan. They have another goal too, which is reviving an ancient and all-powerful deity. But that comes later.
Yeah, well, they also changed the, as we mentioned last week, Tecteun and made it so that the Flux would destroy Earth last, but Swarm and Azure changed it so that the Temple of Atropos is going to be last instead, so that they can summon time on Atropos.
So they can summon time on time. On time.
Time after time.
Oh, actually, I thought it was later, but I actually have it written here in my notes that it's when the Grand Serpent comes in that he's like, by the way, Carvanista, we killed all your people.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's when they take away the Doctor for interrogation. He just goes, oh, by the way, the Luparians are dead.
And you hear Carvanista just let out this, like, blood-curdling howl of sorrow. And again, something I wish was a little bit more dwelt on.
Yeah, that is the one thing that I would have preferred they dwelled on.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't exact.
Is the complete genocide of the Luparian race off screen.
And remember, it wasn't depicted exactly as we wanted it to be, so it's bad.
Wow, okay. Wow.
Well, then we cut to the fourth. We cut to the fourth of the three concurrent, storylines, which is Vinder and Die, about to die. No, not really.
They're just running through the landscape, and she's like, yeah, see, Vinder, like every time we reach the end of a landscape, a new one generates, and he's like, dang it. And he hears like a voice that's like, go into the river, so he runs into the river and gets booted out of the river, and he's like, dang it. And Dai is like, well, I have this thing I've been working on, And my reaction was, you've been You've been holding out on Vinder for 20 minutes? You guys have just been running around landscapes, and you had this plan all along that you just didn't tell him because what? You thought it'd be funny?
That is how it comes across, I suppose.
But she takes him to this part in the forest where she dug a hole.
The Prisoner 2009. Yeah, so she dug this hole, and it's like this portal. This is actually, now that we explain this is actually the wildest part of the episode. Where he's like, yeah, I dug this hole. It's actually a portal. Let's jump into it. So they do.
Well, isn't it that the hole reveals the wiring, and if they mess with the wiring, then the landscape turns into the entrance portal that Vinder came through, but it resets itself after, it repairs itself after a while?
Yeah. Let's go with that. Yeah, I don't know or remember. So. When they activate it or go into it, they wind up in the that sort of barren, Event Horizon-esque landscape.
Yeah, they end up on this planet that's just dust and dirt and soot for miles around. And Vinder's been trying to use the cell phone that the Doctor gave him earlier in the season to call her, because that was the point,
Mm-hmm. And does he succeed at using it?
So part of the reason why I guess she brings up the escape route is that the cell phone's not working inside the passenger, but once they escape, it does, and he's able to call the doctor, and that's the doctor locks onto his signal.
She does show up.
Yeah, because so the doctor that's with Yaz and Dan is, trapezing around the universe with Belle and Jericho actually going to get Claire, because Claire was actually psychic, and that makes her a convenient insert into the Sontaran psychic command. And while they're going to get Claire, they get the phone call from Vinda.
Right, that's actually, according to my notes here, that's actually a little bit later. I remembered it being a singular sequence, but it's actually not, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it's a little bit later. Because I have them getting Claire and dropping Claire and Jericho off before they go get Vinda later separately.
Yes, because Jericho then is interrogated, or at least maybe he's not interrogated, but he is at least sort of detained. Again, you get a smidgen of the Grand Serpent's plan, which is that he just plans to rule, like it's what he's after, apparently.
He also really wants Kate Stewart for he's just like upset that Kate has been messing with his plans.
I think it's just like in his entire 50 to 60 year stint at UNIT, she was the only one who was really onto him.
Yeah. I guess we should also mention that when the doctor goes to get Claire, it's actually two doctors. Is it? No,
I don't think so.
Hang on, no, you're right. Yeah, they save the doctor after getting Claire. Yeah, so the other doctor saves the first doctor. Oh god, the Yaz and Dan doctor saves the Carvanista doctor.
Right, because the doctor is captured, and this is where the Grand Serpent kind of peels back one onion layer of his plan.
She says some things that kind of provide a little more backstory onto who the hell the Grand Serpent is. He's got a binary cardiovascular system. And she says there's not many races that have that.
And she, even more so than that, she seems to know exactly who he is.
Yeah, she just doesn't mention it.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously, whether he is or not, they're obviously hinting that he's a Time Lord. Maybe there will be a twist to that, but, the binary cardiovascular system thing seems to point heavily towards that.
I know, that's like the most defining feature of Time Lords. Mm-hmm. They're the most well-remembered piece of Time Lord biology is the fact that they have two hearts.
Let it be Drax. I'm crossing my fingers for Drax.
No, but Drax was an ally of the Doctor. Why would he go bad?
Any number of reasons. It could be anything. Maybe he just got drunk on power and the ability to rule or something.
Well, so the Doctor saves the Doctor.
Yeah, and they T-Mat out of there. I don't know. They reference T-Mat at this point in the episode, but I don't remember.
They reference T-Mat because Jericho and Claire have T-Mat rings, Transmat. They haven't called it T-Mat since it was introduced, but
we remember.
Yeah, great.
Anyway, the Doctor comes to this epiphany that maybe should have been obvious from the beginning, but at the same time, there was so much going on that, maybe it was, didn't have time to stop and think until now, but she goes hey, wait a minute, why would the Sontarans want peace? That doesn't really seem to add up.
Yeah, but then she says, of course, obviously, I know exactly what's going to happen. And everyone's like, well, would you care to explain? The Doctor at this point goes into contact with herself, which allows her to contact her third self. Because I guess we never made this clear, but none of the three copies of the Doctor are sharing memories. They're all just acting of their own volition.
Yeah. Hence why one was able to save the other and
I think
with the
they
other
are-
being surprised about it.
Yeah, I think they are aware of each other, but they're not sharing memories or thoughts or anything.
No.
But now that they've made contact and they're talking with the one with Azure and Swarm, they're filling that doctor in on everything and telling them that they need to get off that station and try and prevent the flux from destroying everything. But essentially, at this point, she reveals, also in conversation with herself, that the one that's on the ship is like, oh, if the flux is antimatter, and the other two are like, okay, so the plan is obviously the Sontarans are planning to use the other ships, the other races, the Daleks, the Cybermen, whoever shows up, to basically put a huge amount of matter between the Sontarans and the flux. Which should slow the flux down, and then the Sontarans are going to hang out on the other side of the Luparian shield with the hopes that they'll be safe and all their enemies will be destroyed, because the Luparian ships, the Luparian shield, the way it works is basically it generates matter.
Yeah, their plan is essentially to use the flux to wipe out the Daleks and Cybermen and take over the universe. Which they had to have known this was going to go horribly wrong, right?
Well, also, like the Doctor mentions, like, what universe?
Yeah, because, well, like, maybe we haven't really gotten this as an audience visually as well as it could have been depicted, but it's like, supposedly the flux wiped out almost everything.
Yeah.
We still get, like, we still see seemingly a heck of a lot of the remaining universe, but...
The Doctor also, never... the one other thing that I wish they had dwelled upon in this episode is, like, yeah, the fact that, like, the Flux just pulled a master in. Like, what was that episode where the master just wiped out, like, 100 planets or something?
I think it was, like, Castor Valverse or... Yeah.
Yeah. The Flux just wiped out a huge chunk of the universe. And I guess we're all just going to pretend that it was, like, a chunk of the universe that wasn't important to Doctor Who lore.
Yeah.
They really, like, set up, like, the Flux as a compression thing last week and then didn't follow through on that at all this week.
Yeah, well. There's a lot of things.
Unless it's just, like, everything that the Flux compressed is just in the passenger that they put him into, basically.
I don't know. There's a lot of things they seemingly didn't follow up on. Like, the prediction we made where division was referring to the division between space and time. Like, that seemed so correct at the time that we said it. But it wasn't.
Yeah, we were so far off the mark in hindsight. Or maybe we weren't, maybe there's still time. 3 episodes to go. Chris!
I guess it does seem like division was referring to the division between universes, and we even see that sort of like Tecteyun's ship is in like this sort of rift between the old universe and the new one. So I think it's that, to be honest.
Well, it's way less cool.
That it is. Well, so the Grand Serpent has reached his peak level of anger, I think, at this point. He's kind of storming about, and this is actually, I believe, when the Doctor gets Vinder and Die out.
Yes, yeah. Just reading my notes to make sure that we got this in the right order. Yeah, this is when they get Vinder and Die.
So much happened in this episode. Well, par for the course for this season, but it was overwhelming.
Okay, well, so they land where the passenger is, and they're like, where's everyone? They're like, they're probably in that passenger. So they put the TARDIS into the passenger, save Vinder and Die, escape the passenger. Bell's like, by the way, Vinder, we're having a baby. And Vinder's like, what?
Yeah, I was under the impression that Vinder knew.
So was I.
What they could have done, obviously they didn't have to do this, and obviously they didn't, but what they could have done is like, you know how Belle, like, when she contacted Vinder, she was gonna say something, I believe it was like her location, but she gets cut off. What they could have done is like have that be like, oh, and I forgot to tell you I'm, pregnant, but it gets cut off. They could have done that. They could have even had that happen multiple times.
Yeah, it would have been. I don't know.
It would have been goofy, but like would have been good.
Yeah, it would have been goofy. I don't know if it would have. I don't know if it would have worked.
I feel like we got the payoff for that somehow, even though it never happened. Like, there's no like. This is like the opposite of what we do, where it's like we point at Chekhov's gun and then never take it off the wall and fire it. We're just like this. It's like the gun comes out of nowhere. This is like someone pulls a gun and it was never mentioned earlier.
I know, we're like a self-aware play that is always pointing out the gun and then never using it.
Yeah, self-aware play that like plays itself somehow.
We point out the gun. We're like, someone's gonna get shot with that gun, and then in the third act, someone pulls out a knife and stabs them.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the doctor mentions that she's got a choice now. She's got a, somebody, actually, I think it's Yaz, is like, so we have to save the Daleks and the Cybermen to defeat the Sontarans, and the doctor's like, no, I have a much more risky plan.
I know, she turns and looks into the camera. Not really, but almost.
And, at this point, so Claire and Jericho, we should mention the Claire and Jericho plotline, they've been, taken into Sontaran's psychic command. Turns out they're using humans basically to run probabilities, essentially, to find basically the correct timeline and to figure out where the flux is going to end. Since Claire is actually psychic, they can increase the psychic load on her, and they actually do successfully find the end point of the flux to be the Temple of Atropos. So they pack up and leave. So then the doctor's like, okay, Claire, Jericho, activate your T-Mat rings and get out of there. So Claire leaves and Jericho's ring like gets blasted off and then gets blown up. And he's like, well, damn.
Damn it. Yeah, so he's stuck. But he has like, again, maybe a sort of undue like speech. I don't know.
He says something like, in all my years, I've never had as much of an impact or an experience as I have in the 3 days I've known you, Doctor.
Yeah,
Doctor's like, just get to the escape pod, and he's like,
don't forget that he was also part of the 3-year time skip thing that Dan and Yaz were a part of.
Yeah, really. Another thing we kind of just brush past is the trauma and 3 additional years of memories that Dan and Yaz are just walking around with.
Right. I would assume that this is going to be referenced or, at least referenced in one of the specials. It's like they seriously glossed over Yaz in particular, but also Dan, a character that this season introduced. Yaz does get a little bit of a discussion with the Doctor, but it seems very half-hearted on the Doctor's part. And again, just given the ending of Series 12 and just kind of the relationship between Yaz and the Doctor this season, I would assume this is all going to get touched on later on.
Yeah, just a quick thing before that scene happens between the Doctor and Yaz. They actually solve the flux crisis.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying that they were doing that now. I was just referencing that it was in the episode. But yeah, they solved the problem. They solved the main problem in hand.
Yeah, they basically put the flux into the passenger.
Yeah.
Because the passenger is like infinite space.
Yeah,
they set that up way early.
Yeah, they set that up in like episode 1 or 2. I think it was 2. Yeah, they basically just like lock away the flux, and they're like, well, hope no one ever unseals this.
Yeah, that would suck.
I guess effectively ending Azure and Swarm's time loop as well. They did actually, they have actually been referring to this as the final flux event, so I don't know if like, was this, like if say the Doctor didn't enact this plan, like this would have been the final iteration of it, right? I think Azure and Swarm were not going to let it occur any longer, probably because they were going to sacrifice the Doctor to the being known as Time.
Yeah, so they take their copy of the Doctor to Atropos, and they release Time, and then Time is like, because they think the flux is about to hit and fully release it, but then the flux gets sucked into the passenger, so Time shows up and he's like, I'm still trapped. You guys brought me here to announce that you failed. So Time takes the form of Swarm first, and the Doctor's like, wow, okay, appealing to ego there, I see.
Yeah, sort of a, like a Judeo-Christian thing, right? Where it's like a, what was it? Oh yeah, man is created in the image of God, right? But it's obviously like, it was the other way around. It was written the other way around, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Azure and Swarm, they get killed, I assume. They get something, that's for sure.
They're like, yes, ascension, but it really just looks like Time just kills them.
Yeah, I think that is what's happening. Time is killing them for failing, but they, I guess, worship Time so devoutly and so devotedly that they see even, death at the hands of Time as a sort of ascension.
Yeah, Time does kill them in the same way they've been killing everyone else, too.
Yeah, true. Same way they killed Tecteun. Then Time speaks with the Doctor. It takes on the
Time
form.
then takes on the Doctor's form.
Yeah, it takes on the form of the Doctor, but wearing the gray, darker gray coat.
The color inverted coat.
Which was earlier on in the season used to indicate Joe Martin's Doctor.
Right. Or at the very least to indicate the Doctor that was part of Division.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Time is here to lay down some sick foreshadowing for the upcoming specials.
Yeah, and if you watch this with subtitles on, as we did, you get...
it's way more obvious.
You get a very clear reference. She says master, which, like, anytime anyone says master in Doctor Who, then they're probably referring to...
His alarm bells are going off, the klaxon is ringing.
Exactly. The cloister bell is, like, going off the handle. But the subtitles make it even more clear by capitalizing master. And
Yeah, so basically what Time says is, your time is almost at an end, haha. She has a great line to rival the other ones where she says, like, Time basically says she's not going to kill the Doctor. And then Time is like, well, I'm not going to kill you, but you can never outrun me. Knee slapper.
Yeah, you can leave here, but you won't outrun me. Your time is heading to its end. And then...
Yeah, she says something like, no regenerations, no more life.
Yeah, she says nothing is forever, no regeneration, no life. Beware of the forces that mass against you and their master. I'm obviously reading this.
Yeah, and master, again, is capitalized in the captions.
Yep. And that's that. The Doctor gets reunified.
Yeah, Time does leave the Doctor with one more parting gift, which is to reunify her 3 separate bodies into one. Although, if Chris Chibnall really had balls of steel, the next 3 specials would have each followed one of these 3 copies of the Doctor, with the third one ending with them rejoining and regenerating, a la, I don't know, the weird Watcher thing in whatever the 4th Doctor's last story was, Legopolis.
Wow, that's I guess a deep cut. A deep incision, then you sort of reach into that deep incision with like a spoon and scoop out some of its innards.
Look, I'm just drawing from lore that's already been established in the Doctor Who universe, okay? If I was in this position where I had duplicated the Doctor into 3 and I had 3 episodes left, it seems right to give each one episode.
Yeah, true enough.
Although, really, what point would that serve except just being cool? It's like not like any of the 3 Doctors have different personalities. Maybe how I would have done this, I guess, if I was in Chris Chibnall's shoes, BBC hire us, we work for free, is each of the 3 copies of the Doctor would have gotten like maybe one aspect of her personality dialed up to the max. You know, maybe one really dials up that anger that we see come out every time when she like kind of snaps at Yaz. Maybe one of them really dials up the compassion of the 13th Doctor, and maybe one, you know, dials up the emotions to the point where she's basically like Tecteun, a division agent, and then we see those 3 work together to solve this crisis, but because they're aligned moralities, but then after that they disagree. I don't know. Maybe that's how I would have done it, but we'll never know.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, anyway, Chris Chibnall's got a couple more plot threads he needs to wrap up, so...
Yeah, like the animosity and bad blood between Vinder and the Grand Serpent. So Vinder confronts the Grand Serpent. Obviously, Vinder's exile and, all of his troubles, him getting put through all this in the first place was because of the Grand Serpent.
Yeah,
so,
right.
He has a bullet in his gun specifically for the Grand Serpent, essentially.
Yeah, this meeting has a energy of that. I think it's a meme from Batman Beyond. I think Batman comes in and the villain's like, "Who are you?" And Batman's like, "You killed my family." And the guy goes, "Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?" It's like the same energy right here. Vinder comes in and he's like, "You caused everything bad in my life." And the Grand Serpent's like, "I don't even know who you are."
He does. I think he says almost exactly that. But then Vinder comes back with the line of a lifetime. You want to know who I am? I'm the man who understands the pain of exile.
So they just exile him on like an asteroid, I guess?
Yeah, well, they force him to go through door 7. I could have sworn that like they hyped up door 9 in the previous episode.
Yeah, I could have sworn it was door 9. Well, they do actually use door 9 in this, don't they? Don't they open door 9 to kill the Sontarans that invade the tunnels?
Oh, do they? Maybe, yeah.
Why do I have a memory of them opening door 9 to kill the Sontarans in the tunnels?
I remember so very little of the episode, or it's not that I remember little. It's just like it's it's like just a mass of mush. Like it's all just gelled into one or something. But anyway, they force him through door 7, and he winds up like on like a tiny asteroid. Like it's only like 2 steps across, like in the Little Prince or something like that. Tiny little planet can just walk around in 2 seconds.
Yeah, does it have oxygen?
He's seemingly fine, like, there. It's just that, like, he's probably gonna die of thirst pretty soon. Well, Dan goes back to Liverpool.
Yeah, he gives another enthusiastic, not a tour guide speech where he's like, Williamson was the man who might have saved the universe. Everyone's like, I literally don't care about this guy or his tunnels. Anyway, so he's like, hey, Di, I wasn't like late to our drinks. I got kidnapped by a space dog and then went on an epic adventure through time and space and lived 3 years in 1901. It really wasn't my fault. And she hits him with the, you know what? I'm just not feeling it anymore, Dan. He's like, oh, well, I guess.
Yeah, kind of a bummer, and kind of paints Di in like a not great light that she seemingly holds this against Dan. I don't know. Maybe that was just me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because we spent the whole season with Dan, so we've seen everything he's gone through. But Di did get taken into a passenger. She had an adventure of her own, and maybe in the course of that, maybe changed her priorities in life. We just don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But anyway, the doctor pops up and is like, hey, you want to come with us, Dan? And he's like, but why? And they're like, I don't know. I don't even know where we're going.
He's like, sounds good to me. And they're like, no, we're just kidding. And they just dematerialize. He's still left behind. No, I'm just kidding. He comes with them.
Yeah, so they send him to the bedroom area while the doctor now has this heart-to-heart with Yaz, where she's like, I shouldn't have shut you out, and what I've really been looking for is information on myself because, I may not be who I thought I was.
Yeah, truth is, Yaz, I'm a narcissist. Not really. And then the final thing we see in the episode is the doctor still has the pocket watch. She's considering what to do with it. She opens a little hole in the TARDIS console, and she tells the TARDIS, Yaz has gone off somewhere at this point, I don't remember where, I think to find Dan or something.
To show Dan where the bedroom is because he gets lost.
Yeah. So the doctor's by herself, and she drops the watch into the TARDIS and says, keep it safe, and make sure I never have access to it. And then there's like a little beat, and then she goes, unless I really ask for it.
Yeah.
Right, I have the script.
Yeah,
so somewhere I can never find it unless I really ask for it. I have the script open, might as well just say it verbatim.
Yeah, so this was, Paul Cornell kind of made what I felt like was a very insightful comment about this. And this whole episode, and maybe this whole season, maybe kind of the underlying theme of this season, or one of, in Series 12, the Doctor learns from the Master at the very beginning of the season that everything she knows about her life is wrong, and then he just kind of vanishes. And that whole season, this knowledge of the Timeless Child, this knowledge of division is held over her and used as a weapon. And then even into Series 13, into Flux, this knowledge that she lacks is being used against her. And now, with this scene, with the Doctor basically hiding away the pocket watch, she still doesn't know any of this, but it goes from being something that can be used against her to basically she has reclaimed her power over that knowledge, even if she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. And I think not unimportantly, like, that knowledge is not a knowledge of her past, this sort of era of Doctor Who, maybe not Series 11, because that was sort of easing us into it, but this entire this entire era, the Chibnall era of Doctor Who, is sort of taken that, like, meta angle where it's like, it's sort of about, like, the past of the Doctor and the Doctor's future and kind of how those relate to, like, the show at large.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting. I just wanted to bring up this comic because I thought it was worthwhile and relevant. And I had seen it on Twitter, and I thought it was important to note.
At the end of Series 12, this kind of rings similar to me, where it's like at the end of Series 12, Yaz very much has like this unhealthy obsession with the Doctor. Like, we see, like, she constructs a conspiracy wall, like, to find the Doctor, and it's never stated outright, but it's like, it's very clear that that's what's happening. And this seemingly is along those same lines, where it's like the Doctor is, she's saying, all right, I don't need this, that I'm not going to let this be weaponized against me. But at the same time, she's obviously still curious, and it's as if she's like forcing herself to say, like, no, I don't need this to be something that I need to look at. I think I think sort of maybe that thin layer, that like veneer of being okay with not knowing is going to come peeled back in the next season, especially with the Master almost definitely going to be making an appearance here.
Yeah, it's interesting because, the way that Chris Chibnall has set up the Doctor in the 13th Doctor is very much that this Doctor keeps their companions kind of at a distance more so than previous Doctors. And I think that's, in universe kind of a response to how interestingly we got almost the reverse of the Yaz relationship with the Doctor and Clara, where the Doctor was obsessively, unhealthily obsessed with Clara, which ended up getting her killed. And then, he started to distance himself from Bill, and then when he becomes the 13th Doctor, she seems to hold all her companions very much at a distance. And in a way, that has kind of spurred Yaz on, because Yaz is always like, I've had nothing interesting has ever happened in my life, and the Doctor's the most interesting thing that's happened to her, and she, because of that, is like obsessed with finding out everything she can about the Doctor. Just so happens that she is, she's going on adventures with the one Doctor who's like explicitly keeping everyone as at much of a distance as possible. Mm-hmm. And that possibly is maybe playing into her obsession. The less the Doctor's telling her, the more she wants to know. And I think this scene, this heart-to-heart, is really important for that, because I think it is like showing that the Doctor is opening themselves up again. The 13th Doctor is very much... I think her character arc has been that, opening up to people, and not just companions, but other people as well. Just can't wait for her to just dump all this knowledge on Dan, and he'd just be like, okay, well, I just like coming along for the ride. I don't know why this is my Dan voice.
Yeah, that was your Shepherd Book voice for Inevitable, for Firefly.
No, my Shepherd Book voice was more like this.
Yeah, true.
It's interesting, again, doing the greatest hits of Doctor Who here with, if you'll remember back to, was Planet of the Ood, where like the Ood gives the Doctor a foreboding prophecy, the 10th Doctor, about how his life will come to an end very shortly, and then like a couple episodes later he dies.
Yeah. I was in Waters of Mars, like right at the end, the Ood shows up, he's like, guess what, Doctor?
Guess what? Prophecy time.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, Chris Chibnall just doing greatest hits of Doctor Who again, with time being like, guess what? You're gonna die.
Your time's almost up, Doctor.
Wow. Just wanted to let our third host get a word in there, the stunned silence.
I know. Let me just control... I have the script open, so again, why not? I'm just going to control F time. 38. Wow, way fewer than I thought it would be. 38 mentions of time in the script. And that's even... I'm not going to calculate it, but that's even less, because some of those mentions are the character Time speaking. So like you get Time, the flux is extinguished, right? So that's a line that Time says.
Yeah.
So it's even less than that.
We should also mention that in the resolution of this episode, Vinda and Bell get left with Carvanista to go travel the universe, I guess.
Right. So opening it up for more adventures, I guess, with them, potential.
Yeah, just like how Stephen Moffat opened it up for adventures with Clara and me at the end of Hellbent. I don't know why that's so funny.
I think it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either. I think maybe it's just because of how overblown all of that was. How both me and Clara were like these sort of...
immortal beings.
Yeah. These all-powerful, omniscient, omnipotent, immortal beings, the end of the universe. So, I mean, now they're the last season did this too, Revolution of the Daleks, I guess that is. Opening it up for more adventures with Ryan and Graham.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Maybe in the 13th Doctor's big finale, Ryan and Graham will meet Carvanista, Bell, and Vinder.
Wow, wouldn't that be great? What if they just meet Dan?
Just by himself? Not with the Doctor?
Yeah, Dan's just walking to the pub, and then like Graham and Ryan come by and like, hey, we're looking for the Doctor, and Dan just goes, oh, she's down there in the TARDIS. I really don't know why that's my Dan voice.
God, I wonder if there's going to be any more to Dan, to be perfectly honest. Or is he just going to be the guy who's just along for the ride?
Yeah, I think it's that. He's just along for the ride. I think he's there to provide kind of a counterpoint to Yaz. Yaz is so obsessed with the Doctor, obsessed with the Doctor's origins, the Doctor's history. Yaz is kind of, I think Dan is there to serve as a counterpoint to that and just be kind of like, well, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, he does seem diametrically opposed to her high-strungness with his carefreeness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so a couple plot threads are left unwrapped up. The baby, for one. Who was the baby?
I know people are like, this is going to be the Doctor, it's going to be someone important, just watch. And, personally, I never subscribed to that. I didn't think it was going to end up being someone like we already knew, or like the Doctor or anything like that. But at the same time, it was actually touched on way less than I thought it was going to be. It was more of a low-key aspect of the episode. So
people were like, there were people who like hated that it might be the Doctor, as the baby. They're like, how would Chris Chibnall ever like introduce canonically the Doctor's parents? And then like at the end, it was just like, surprise, it's nobody.
Yeah, unless this somehow comes back in a big way in one of the 3 specials, it's barely touched on whatsoever. And it's like it's so weird because it seems. Again, it's one of those things where it's like it seems that it's going to be set up to like, be this sort of, if not like someone important, at least this like symbol of new life or something like that, right? Because the flux is destroying everything and the universe is dying. And you're like, once they introduce the baby, you're like, okay, so at the end they're gonna, everything's gonna be put back to normal. The universe is going to, be put back onto track, and they're going to have this sort of, this symbol of new life, this baby and Bell and Vinder and all this, but no.
Well, I think that, even though we don't see the baby born, I think that is the like thematic significance of the baby being this representation of new life, or the coming new life.
Yeah, it's not the Doctor specifically, but in a way, I think it actually is connected with what the Doctor has been going through ever since the Timeless Children, and in this season, where it's like, the gist of it is like her entire future is open to her. Her past doesn't matter, so she's like this sort of, this newborn, like there's it's completely unwritten. Like anything is possible for this child. I guess anything unrelated to the parts of the universe destroyed in the flux. But yeah, maybe that's sort of kind of how it all ties in.
Yeah, the part of the universe we're never going to see again and never going to hear about again.
No, but you know what I mean, right? It's like this baby now that they've saved the universe, this baby is going to have like this unlimited potential. Not really unlimited potential, but like it's going to have a lot of potential. It's going to have this entire universe, whatever they saved of it. And like the Doctor is seemingly in the same position where it's like when she is choosing to discard her past and not look at what's in the watch, so that she's not defined by what came before.
Yeah, well, she chooses not to look in the watch yet.
Yeah, and truth be told, she did get a glimpse of it with the Impossible House. That's how you know that we.
But interestingly, she did like see that house in a vision earlier this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps those memories are actually still in her head, just blocked off somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is actually, I don't even know why I said that way, because I think that was like, they must be in there, but I was going to say, like, when they introduced the watch, I'm pretty sure there was something along the lines of, like, that's kind of how it worked like that. I don't remember.
I don't either. Well, as for the classic Who I think we're pretty much done discussing the events. So, like,
Yeah.
as for the classic Who references, I didn't have a single one. Except Transmat, I guess.
Oh, yeah, T-Mat. Come on, T-Mat. I guess also Contact again, but they did that last week. 2 weeks ago, excuse me.
We did have some actors, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of.
We didn't go over the Ood from last week, so we decided to just do so now.
Yeah.
Actually played by two different people, one doing the voice and one doing the motion acting. The guy who did the motion acting, Simon Carew, Carew, that's how you spell his last name, has been playing Ood in Cybermen for almost a decade now, and that's seemingly it. He doesn't have any. He has 2 credits on IMDb, as a Cyberman and an Ood for the past like 10 years on Doctor Who, and then as a monster on BBC Proms. In the episode Doctor Who at the Proms.
Yeah, I think when they filmed that, they had a bunch of Doctor Who monsters spread out throughout the audience. So probably one of those people in costume.
Yep.
The guy I looked up, Silas Carson, was the voice of the Ood and has been the voice of the Ood, pretty much in all of their appearances, but has quite a prolific acting career. 82 credits to his name. Midsummer Murders, Grace, CB Strike, Silent Witness, the video game Sea of Thieves, EastEnders, the movie Phantom Thread, which I quite enjoyed, The Casual Vacancy, the adaptation of J.K. Rowling's adult novel, Doctors, Holby City, How Not to Live Your Life. He was in 2 episodes as a voice role of The Sarah Jane Adventures, The IT Crowd, The Bill, MI5. Apparently, he was Ki-Adi-Mundi and Nate Gunray in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Huh.
That's interesting, I suppose. Also in episode 2 and 1, because those characters appear there too. Anyway, that's pretty much everything that I recognized.
Huh. Weird.
Wow, yeah, actually looking at his pictures, yeah, he is Ki-Adi-Mundi and Nute Gunray. Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I know earlier this season we mentioned, maybe offhandedly, maybe as a joke, the doing something like what theories did we have this season that came true or didn't?
Pretty much all of them didn't.
Yeah, we had so many crazy theories this season. We mentioned a lot of them throughout, like the division being the division between space and time, the division being division between the Doctor now and the Doctor, like the Ruth Doctor era. Basically anything with Swarm and Azure. Oh, jeez. But I think thematically this episode did tie up everything. I liked this episode. I wouldn't say it was my favorite of Flux, but I really don't think it was bad at all. I actually quite enjoyed it. And I like that it feels like there's more to be said, and that will be said.
Yeah, it does feel like we were kind of harsh on it for the past hour and a half, but I liked it overall. I especially like the final scene / final moment where the Doctor puts the watch away. It's like to an almost euphoric degree, especially like where she goes, her final line, unless I really ask for it.
Yeah. Well, just 3 episodes to go before we're done with Jodie and Chris.
And as we mentioned before, 3 episodes over the course of basically a year.
Yeah, 8 months. We'll get the first one in 3 weeks, and then we'll have to wait 3 months, and then we'll have to wait another 6 months after that. Mm-hmm. Oh, geez. Well, let's interact with our fans.
Well, okay, we can do the emails first. But I was going to say, speaking of interacting with, what? What was this?
What?
Did we?
What?
What? Okay, never
I don't
mind.
know
Never
what
mind.
we're
Nothing.
wanting at.
Nothing. It's nothing. Never mind.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have an email from Steven, the Vanquishers, in quotes. Hey guys, on your last episode, Dylan saying for shizzle made me literally laugh out loud. Regarding the killing joke, the Joker actually mentions the multiple choice pass thing at the end of that comic rather than in a later story. The animated film adaptation is really good as long as you skip the first half hour of Batman-Batgirl shipping. I agree. You also mentioned that Chibi came up with the name Shibogans, however this was first mentioned in The Deadly Assassin. What?
Wait, really? What the hell?
Yeah, wait, what?
Hold on. Are we getting taken for a ride here, so to speak?
Well, you look it up while I keep reading. In The Vanquishers, there are moments and character interactions that I enjoyed, but by the end it left me feeling cold. I would have been fine with the fob watch being destroyed, but with how they've teased that the Doctor may need it later, it will be really disappointing now if we never find out its contents. I'd be really surprised if Chibi killed off the Doctor for real and then RTD2 picked up with a pre-Hartnell Doctor. This is going to sound hella pretentious, but I believe it was Martin Scorsese who described superhero movies as theme parks. I agree to an extent in that theme parks can be really fun and make one's day. Doctor Who Flux could be considered a roller coaster, but if that's the case, then from where I'm sitting, it's a roller coaster that was lacking in thrills. I find it kind of amazing that it did not thrill me very much, and it really bums me out because this is Jodie's final, quote, full, unquote, season. Some don't even really care what's happening as they watch and are just waiting for RTD2, and it's really sad that the show has reached this point. I really hope I enjoy the specials. Out of the 10th Doctor specials at the end of the run, Waters of Mars is the only one I really like, so it might not be tough for 13 specials to beat his in my eyes, but I still worry now that I may end up finding the specials to be as underwhelming as Flux. I wish it wasn't such a downer on this season, but this is really how I'm feeling. I really enjoyed Jodie's first 2 seasons for the most part, so this latest one was a letdown overall. I'm really glad there's big Finish stuff for me to listen to between seasons at least. I'm actually kind of looking forward to when they are able to tell stories set within this era once Jodie's is finished. Anyway, looking forward to whatever's next for Trust Your Doctor. I guess that would be the New Year's special. Not sure if you guys would do anything in between, but I'm sure you'll bring up your overall plans and I'll be there to listen again. Cheers, Steven.
Damn, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Steven. Sorry to hear you weren't perhaps as sold on Flux as we were. But that's okay, you know, it doesn't have to be for everybody. Not everything needs to be for everybody. It is kind of sad how there are people who are like, just give me RTD2 now, I don't care about any of this. But
I'm just waiting for the disillusionment. That's going to be the true, I don't know, Schadenfreude of the foreseeable future of Doctor Who is people being like, people, you know, coming to, people actually not coming to terms with the fact that, you know, Russell T Davies era Doctor Who is like, you know, maybe not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, remember how campy and cheesy that whole thing was? People people just remember the good stuff.
Can't wait for the return of like all the toilet humor and like all the 5-year-old humor.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait for the Absorbaloff to come back. Woo! Woo! Russell T! God, imagine the very first episode of Russell T's second era is like...
The first shot of the season is the Absorbaloff.
I saw a tweet. Okay, so this is relevant. I saw a tweet where it's been rumored that, like, since the next Doctor hasn't been cast, that Jodie's final episode is going to end on, like, an open-ended regeneration where she regenerates, but we don't see who she regenerates into. And someone commented, like, be interesting if we didn't know who the next Doctor was when the next episode aired and we just kind of had to figure it out. And I just want everybody to know that we proposed that on Trust Your Doctor as an idea like 3 years ago, okay?
Yeah.
So if it happens, we came up with this 3 years ago.
If it happens, it just further confirms the fact that Doctor Who is being retroactively created from archives of our podcast by time travelers who came back into the past.
Man, kind of sucks that this was the podcast they were left with to reconstruct the show from.
Well, okay, here we go. I'm on the page Shibogan species on the TARDIS wiki, and here's what it says. The term Shibogan, sometimes corrupted to Shibuj, became used for people on the fringe of the Time Lord civilization, with most Time Lords no longer applying it to themselves. TV, the Deadly Assassin.
Interesting.
I didn't remember that whatsoever. So thanks, Steven, but also, wow. Wow. That's another thing where Chris Chibnall is digging way back into the past of something obscure that barely anyone probably remembers.
Yeah, it's even mentioned in Lungbarrow. If there's a Shibogen link, the term of Shibogen, if you click that, it goes to the page just for the word Shibogen. And it actually tells you exactly where it appears in Deadly Assassin there. According to Castellan Spandrel, the Shibogans often committed petty acts of vandalism within the capital.
Well, damn.
Huh. Yeah, Steven's email also made me realize that like Chris Chibnall's era kind of feels like one really long serial that gets progressively more and more insane the longer it goes on. Remember how measured and practical The Woman Who Fell to Earth was? Remember how like down to earth it was? And then like just look where we are now.
Yeah.
It's just like the entire it's like how the universe and time was unraveling in flux. That's what's happened over Chris Chibnall's run, you know. The entire thing has just been slowly unraveling and becoming more and more insane.
Well, it's the ramp up that makes it, you know,
satisfying.
Bearable. Yeah, exactly. I know we've said this a million times already, but it's not like this, you know, during the Stephen Moffat era, it was like every story had the scale and like the grandeur of this season of Flux. It's like every single week we're getting our own new Flux event.
I know, like compare Chris Chibnall's very first episode to Moffat's. Chris Chibnall's first episode, the Doctor falls out of the TARDIS, lands on Earth, has to save the Earth from one alien who is hunting one human. Compare that to Moffat's first episode, where the Doctor falls out of the TARDIS, eats fish fingers and custards, and has to save the entire planet from an alien that is coming to exterminate everyone on Earth.
Well, Anne becomes this like massive presence in this girl's life for like the entire course of her life. Don't forget about that. You know, just worming his way, I guess, into someone's life in like a maybe not so great way. Well, anyway, besides emails, we have a ton of social media comments for some reason. Not for some reason, I actually know why. One of them was in a direct message. I feel, given the content of the message and the fact that it is a response to something we said on the podcast last week, I feel that it's okay to read aloud and share with people, even though it was in the form of a direct message. So I'm just going to do that. It's from JB Anderton, friend of the show. And so JB writes, wow, nice to know I have a huge podcast following in the UK and or Australia, which you've apparently displaced me to from Chicago since you've had no one from the USA on Trust Your Doctor, winky face. I will be putting out my review of the entire Flux series in a couple weeks. Looking forward to hear your thoughts on the finale, JB. Yeah, sorry, JB. We actually, in that, when we said that, we were actually forgetting all the people from the U.S. Like, there was a handful of people from the U.S., obviously, who've been on Trust Your Doctor and who are, you know, friends of ours and friends of the show. And we just forgot all of them.
Well, I didn't forget JB. What I did forget, though, was where the hell JB was based, which, you know, considering we always have to work around time zones, time schedules, but mostly time zones to set all these crossovers up, I should have probably remembered / realized he was in America, but I didn't, so I apologize.
Well, and his accent, like his voice, you know?
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
Yeah, our bad, JB. But yeah, thanks for your comment and message.
Yeah, but thanks for reaching out and correcting us, though.
And definitely looking forward to what you have to say on Flux. On your podcast name, which shall not be said on our podcast, because we typically don't give ours an explicit tag and would have to probably if we said it.
We'll put it in the show notes, though.
Yeah. It's for anyone who doesn't read the show notes, it's Doctor Who Gives a Blank podcast, with the blank being the F-bomb.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a lot more comments here via Twitter, and that was because I put out this call. Not put out a call, but like last week I just basically asked, like, before the Vanquishers aired, I just asked, like, what's been your favorite episode so far? So a bunch of people responded to that. So let's go through them one by one. So, Very Pete Lambert, apparently now known as Pebble MILF at 1, aka at prof_quite a mess on Twitter, friend of the show, says, in response to my question, yeah, as a distinct episode, it stood up best. And he's referring to Village of the Angels because that's what I said my favorite one was, and still is, actually, looking back on the 6 episodes, still is my favorite. Anyway, he goes on, Sontarans was fun, but I hate magic reset endings, asterisk, parentheses, like, did the invasion in 2021 unhappen? Do Dan's parents remember it? Does the script even care? Moffatry be gone, end parentheses. And the asterisk on the word endings leads to, he said, ominously, a few hours before Chapter 6. Asterisk on magic reset endings, I should say. Anyway, he followed this up with, but I also think parts 3 and 5 will come to be seen more fondly than they currently seem to be, once they've settled into their places as steps in the story, so long as their events do turn out to have mattered. So yeah, it seems like, this kind of rings similar to what we were saying, what we have been saying for a couple weeks, I think, where it's like episodes 2, 4, and 6, feel like their own thing, feel like their own self-contained, not self-contained because they're not, but like they feel more like they deal with a problem that arose that week and is solved that week, versus 3 and 5 and 1, I guess. Well, 1 was the introduction, but like 3 and 5 seem to be more bridges between, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we've been talking about that for like you said, pretty much the whole season. So,
Anyway, we have another comment here from Who Hats, a great account on Twitter. I've genuinely liked all episodes this series. For me, 2 was my favorite story, but I felt 5 edged it, though more of a step along the way than distinct story. So again, same idea. Felt it offered much progress on the overall story. I anticipated 1 gaining favor with me now. We know where it's headed. So yeah, again, just kind of espousing the same idea that like 1 and 3 and 5 were kind of, leading us into these other stories. So
yeah, I think on that one, I think retrospective reviews will be most kindest to episode 1 now that we know everything that comes after it. That's the one that is the most, like, of the stepping stone episodes, the one that's most stepping stony and doesn't necessarily seem very clear what's going to happen.
Right. That's because they have to set everything up.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So Skinny Malinky, a.k.a. at Simone Gans, responds, Village of the Angels. Great story and a fantastic cliffhanger ending. My favorite 13th episode so far. # Doctor Who Flux. I agree. I don't think it's my favorite 13th episode so far, but I do think it's up there, probably in the top 5.
Yeah, I definitely think it was my favorite episode of Flux, for sure. Personally.
And finally here we have another a sort of not final, in that it was intentionally final, but a final one that we're reading here. Comment from BT/Flibberty Gigit, aka You're Cool 91, at You're Cool 91, says, it's bad, but I enjoyed it. Oh, this is in response to what do you think? Because I asked also another question, which was, what do you think of Doctor Who Flux overall? And this is in response to that. It's bad, but I enjoyed it. Most of the characters had literally nothing to do with the actual plot. Division got defeated by disintegrating one person despite having an army of weeping angels. The Grand Serpent, who had nothing to do with the actual plot, got more screen time and focus than Swarm and Azure, our actual villains. Carvanista's species gets killed off screen, then we just gloss over that. In other words, it's a bad ending to a vague, unfocused plotline, but I had a lot of fun watching it. I do completely agree with, like, Azure and Swarm were our actual villains in the sense that they were like the best thing about Doctor Who Flux and the coolest and creepiest and most scary. And yet we divert so much attention to the Grand Serpent. I didn't say this until now, I guess. But I too was of the opinion that, like, I don't know, the Grand Serpent was kind of just a distraction or something like that.
Well, because when he was introduced, he was like one of those. He was introduced as part of Vinda's flashback backstory.
Right.
So you think he's going to be contained to that aspect of the whole arc. And so it's a little bit of a surprise to have him show up in Survivors of the Flux and be like, "What's up? I'm messing up unit."
I know, yeah, show up in the 1950s. But yeah, anyway, thanks for all your responses, everyone who responded there.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out, everybody. Glad we get some varied opinions on the show. You know, it gets boring just listening to me and Keon all the time. But I suppose that's our cue to explain what's happening next. So, yeah, like Steven kind of alluded to, we're not going to do anything in between this episode and, I guess, Eve of the Daleks.
Yeah, we're actually not doing anything at all. We're just going to, like, we're just going to crawl, I guess, back into our coffins where we spend our time when we're not recording and come back out when the episode airs.
Yeah, so we're going to take a little bit of a miniature hiatus. We have episodes of Inevitable that are going out after this for another week and a half. And then after that, you know, we won't release anything. We're going to release the New Year's episode here on Trust Your Doctor, Eve of the Daleks, although we're not sure if we'll release it like a day after the episode airs or if we'll take a week to do it. That's you know, a discussion that's still going to be had. But then basically, as soon as we finish that, we're going to execute our plan to alternate Trust Your Doctor and Inevitable. So
yeah, we're finally going to get to execute Order 66 here after ideating it like a year ago.
It took a lot of setups, you know, a lot of setup. We had to close Triple Play down. You know, we had to finagle Inevitable around. We didn't know when Doctor Who was going to air, and we did very poorly with that.
Yeah. And then the season actually aired at the most inopportune time.
Yeah, bang on in the middle of Firefly on Inevitable. But yeah, so the New Year's episode will go out on Trust Your Doctor. Then we're going to have a season of Inevitable, a really short 3-episode season on
Childhood's End. We haven't announced that yet, but whatever.
The new matter. Well, might as well announce it now. We're only going to record one more episode of Inevitable, and we're going to announce it on that episode too.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna watch the Childhood's End adaptation, and then after that, we haven't decided if we're going to do another season of Inevitable before doing a season of Trust Your Doctor things, probably audios, or if we're going to go into Trust Your Doctor for a season of audios at that point. That much, at least, is still TBD, and you know, you guys will probably know by the time we get to the New Year's episode what's going to happen there.
Yeah, because we'll probably know by then. We'll hopefully know, I guess.
It'll be 3 episodes away from having to know at that point, so...
Yeah, we usually decide like 2 minutes before we announce it, so...
So that's the plans for Trust Your Doctor moving forward. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for Flux, the first season we've been able to watch and release live. It's been a good journey, I think. I've had a lot of fun with it.
I have as well. I just wish... This is out of our control, but I just wish, like, we were able to release them. We released the episodes like as late as we possibly could to still be considered watching them like live. You know what I mean? Like we released them a week late.
We release on Sundays, and the episodes only aired at 5:00 our time here on the Pacific coast of the United States. Like 5:00 local time, a full. What would that be? 9 hours after we normally release, or 8 hours? Sorry, after we normally release. So. I mean, I guess we could have moved to releasing on Wednesdays, but you know.
Yeah, and as it already was, we were kind of rushing to watch the episodes and record them. So. Yeah,
it was just we did our best.
Yeah, again, it wasn't in our control, so it's not like it was our fault or anything. But like, yeah, kind of sucked. But oh well.
But yeah, if anybody would like to reach out, we're still accepting emails, obviously, to be read on the New Year's episode, Eve of the Daleks, and Definitely send us your thoughts when that airs, too. You can reach us at thedoctor@decadavevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Doctor Who Flux. You can find us on YouTube at Decadative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you find the podcast at Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching, as Dylan already mentioned, Eva the Daleks. But until then, the end.